The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California, and it's Wednesday. And you know I love Wednesdays if you watch the show. We're going to be starting in just a few minutes. Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grandpichet is here to answer your questions. We have a full hour with her. It's very exciting and very educational. And then a little bit later on in the show, we have Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson with us for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We have a very special guest today. Christine Duffley is going to be with us. She is the mom of Christopher Duffley, the little boy. I know you've seen him on YouTube. He is the singer beautiful, beautiful singer. He's on the autism spectrum and is also blind and is just the most, he's a little angel and sings so beautifully. And we're going to have his mom here with us to talk about all the things that their family has overcome to get to the point that they're at. So a very exciting show today. But we like to start out by reminding you that there are lots of different ways for you to participate because this show is only as good as it is when you guys join us. And we want you to join us in so many different ways. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways you can watch the show and interact with us. I'll remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there are a bunch of different things that you can do, including checking out our blog. We are still featuring a free download of a meditation for overwhelmed parents. I hope you check it out and let us know if you like that. We have another one in the works for children, and we're talking about doing more of them if you like them. So let us know. Check it out and look at it. Also, we want you to know that there is a live feature on that homepage. If you go there, you can be watching the live show or the most recently recorded live show, but you can interact with us in those boxes to the side. Take and put your cursor there, start typing, hit enter, and what you write will show up here on our screen. There is a little bit of a lag. We think it's about a minute, minute and a half. So make sure you write your questions in early and, so that we don't miss you. I know somebody wrote and said, why do you not ask my question? Because it came in after the guest had left. So that's free. You don't have to do any lengthy login. You are absolutely anonymous. If you want us to get back to you with information, then make sure you include a way for us to get back in touch with you. We will not share that with the audience at home. We respect your anonymity. All right, without further ado, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Doreen Grandpichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grandpichet.
Dr. Grandpichet.
Dr. Doreen Grandpichet.
Dr. Doreen Grandpichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen, and welcome Dr. Doreen Grandpichet.
Thank you. Good morning.
It's so good to have you here this morning. It's great to have you every Wednesday and give people an opportunity to ask their questions. You are a true expert in this field of autism, and as I always remind all of us, you're a visionary in this field.
You, as I said, always embarrass me on Wednesday mornings, but thank you very much.
It's my pleasure to embarrass you with compliments.
I'm constantly learning, let me put it that way, constantly.
Well, and I sit at your feet and learn at your feet, and gratefully so. We want to remind everybody who's watching that even though you are a wonderful expert in the field of autism, no one on this show can give child-specific advice, not in this format.
That's right.
There's no possibility of giving you enough information. It would be a disservice to the child, but having said that, people can write in their questions and their concerns, and you give us a really great view of where to go next, some questions questions to ask, some resources to be able to look into, some different ways of looking at things.
Right, just a different perspective most of the time, I think, and some guidance on where to find the actual help. Yeah.
So very helpful. And I want to jump in today because I want to get as many questions in as we can.
Sounds
and
good.
I want to start by talking about teenagers because last week we didn't get to a question and I felt bad about it all week long. I carried this guilt with me. Somebody wanted to know, how do I get my teenage son with Asperger's syndrome to go to school when he has anxiety?
Yeah, that's of course a very big issue, and so I have a huge lecture on anxiety. Anxiety is a big issue for a lot of children, and at this point, I think what you have to do as a parent is you have to focus on the anxiety and not on the Asperger's. So in other words, what are some things you can do to try to reduce the anxiety? Okay, so first of all, with all people, when you have anxiety, it's essentially it's a fear of the unknown. It's kind of what's going to happen at school. And I find that with our kids who are higher functioning, our kids with Asperger's, a lot of the issue they're concerned about is things that we would hope for, because our more affected children don't really experience things like embarrassment and so on, but our kids with Asperger's do. They start to recognize how certain things are very difficult for them, how they're different from their peers, and they get embarrassed, obviously. And so there's many different things, short-term things. Here are some ideas. Try to find one friend or a peer, someone in his class with whom he can hang out outside of school. Now, they don't have to become the best of friends, but as long as it's someone who is sort of a companion or someone that he can occasionally hang out with in school, that would be a very, very helpful thing. Being alone for kids is a very, very embarrassing thing. They don't really, all kids, if they have one other person with them, it doesn't necessarily matter who that is. As long as they're not alone, that really helps kids a lot. The second thing is, you'd have to do play dates and try to see if there's any way to get the child connected to your child in some way outside of school. Second thing is, research has shown that any kind of item that your child has with them that is, I guess, I don't know, I want to say like a cool item or something that is the current fad or whatever it is. Like right now, unfortunately, these items are usually expensive items.
Yes.
So right now, of course, it happens to be like the Beats Vibrate headphones, that are like $300-400, and I see kids in high school wearing them, which is pretty amazing to me, probably even in middle school as well. And things like that automatically make you cool. Yeah. And that's sort of an important thing. And it doesn't have to be something expensive. Obviously, there are other things. The cool kids are usually also kids whose parents are somehow involved in some activity. I know that in my kids' middle school, for instance, the coolest kid was the student council president. Another group of kids that were very cool in my kids' classes were the drama kids who were in drama. So it's kind of like, you just have to pay attention to what's going on in your child's school and who are the popular kids and what aspect of things can you help develop that will make your child somewhat more popular. It doesn't have to be popular, but just as long as he doesn't stand out, he sort of fits in and if he stands out for something that is making him look cool. Yeah. Now, I'm just trying to deal right now with the embarrassment factor, but then there's anxiety things as well. Make sure your child is sleeping well. Make sure that you give your child some anxiety type exercises that help with anxiety. Give him ways out. For instance, teach him okay, in school, when do you feel really nervous? Like, talk to him, find out what is making him really anxious. And let's assume he's fine in class because the attention isn't on him, but maybe it's lunch period. And teach him that there are other things he can do during lunch period. A lot of kids will, for instance, go hang out in the band room or the gym or the library or something like that, so that he's not necessarily wandering around and feeling kind of under a spotlight. This is a very important discussion because you'll find out if your child's actually in some ways being bullied or is being placed in a situation that makes him very uncomfortable. Now, these are just, go online and look at my anxiety lecture. I think I have a whole ton of ideas about how to help kids with anxiety. Usually, even a little thing like giving him like a little object, like, a lot of people will use something like some sort of like a rabbit's foot or a talisman of some type. My daughter this morning, I gave her a necklace a while ago, which is just one of those, a unity circle. And she said, like, I love it so much, like I'm constantly playing with it, and I realize it's becoming like a little clutch, like something she'll go to. So something like that, that he can even have in his pocket, will help reduce his anxiety. Breathing exercises are always good. In the morning, he could actually do breathing exercises, and you could teach him some meditation or desensitization. I mean, the main intervention is desensitization, and that has to do with identifying what is causing anxiety and then shaping him to gradually be able to desensitize himself against those, stimuli that are closer and closer to the actual anxiety-provoking thing. But that's a lot. Those are a lot of ideas, and I think before you do, or as you think about doing any of those, it's really important to recognize if he is or isn't able to cope by himself. Sometimes our kids are placed in school and they really aren't able to cope on their own yet. This is one of the reasons that I'm very, very adamant about my children here at CARD not being exposed to school without an aide unless they have a certain level of social and communication competence. It's very important to me because I don't want my kids going to school being made fun of, feeling embarrassed, feeling left out. I don't want any of that to happen to begin with. So I will always have a one-to-one shadow or an aide with the child who will not only distract, but will kind of help the interactions go well, and will be someone who is supportive of our child and helpful to our child. So that's in the most extreme cases, of course, that's the direction to go.
Okay, so for a teenager, then, is it unreasonable if I'm just thinking about all the different variables here, that you've got a child who's having such anxiety that it's preventing them from going to school.
Right.
And you want them to go to school because there's a social situation at school and you want them to grow. And there's the educational aspect of going to school, that you want the academics to be happening there. I mean, I guess they're both educational. But I have heard of parents pulling a child out and homeschooling out of the teen years for a period of time, 6 months or a year, to try to get, so that you don't miss the academics. Is it a thing where you're trying to prioritize and say, if I send them to school and work on the anxiety, how much are we going to accomplish? I guess.
See, I would probably not pull out for half a year or a year even, because I just see that as making things much more difficult the following year.
Okay.
If you are pulling the child out of school, you're not dealing with the most anxiety-provoking factor, which is school.
Okay.
They're no longer exposed to it. Now, you can sit down and talk about it forever, but as long as your child doesn't have to go to school, they're not actually going to practice, being able to overcome it. So, and then the next year it'll be harder, right? Okay. Because now they will have managed to avoid it for a whole year. It'll be much, much harder. So I think the most important with anxiety is to assess what's actually causing the anxiety. And with teenagers, it's sometimes very hard to identify because they don't want to talk about things, or they're roundabout communication. And secondly, if you have Asperger's, it's even harder to identify, right? So, you could potentially do an observation, or have someone do an observation whom your child doesn't know, and try to see how things are going. You could have a conversation with some of the teachers and find out. Generally, you need to know what is causing anxiety. And I guarantee you there's something. It's not just going to school. There's something. I know, and it's, we can segue into this longer email.
Yes.
Because one of our very regular viewers wrote and talked about her older daughter, who may or may not have Asperger's. I'm not quite sure at this point, but hasn't been officially diagnosed, let's put it that way. But the main issue with her is that her daughter, this is familiar to me, this is children who put so much stress. There's so much stress at school these days.
To be perfect, and to be in the AP classes and to get it all done and do all of those things, that you must be in those classes and you must excel in those classes. And sometimes, and what this viewer had written in is that they're having trouble keeping up, that their EF skills are not at the point where they need to be, so it's becoming so stressful.
Right,
that they're
and
concerned.
I'm not even, and to be honest with you, I mean, it is a lot of planning, that's very true, and I have 3 very different children, right? And I have, my oldest, who actually did manage to stay in the game in terms of A's and AP classes and all that and get into a good university that way, was extremely stressed out. I can truly say that. She did very, very well. Less stressed out in the later years of high school, because I think she kind of figured things out, and much more stressed in the earlier years, where it's simply, but having said that, she would easily spend 3 hours a night studying, at least, maybe 4, sometimes more, and weekends, right?
Yeah.
With my other 2 children, my son just, he gets stressed, but he somehow does the very minimum he needs to in order to go get by. And then my other daughter is just like what this viewer wrote, in that she wants it all. She wants to have the very good grades and the higher level classes, but she also wants to be involved in academics and in after school activities and in like sports and in drama and this and that. And just like, for instance, last night she got home at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then she had 2 tests today, so she had to study until midnight, And so it is ridiculously stressful for our kids these days. And I think, everybody has a different approach to it. Yeah. And I think that it's a matter of just helping our children understand that there's not one solution, there's many. Even if you don't get straight A's, there's always college options and so on. But for this particular case, it's getting to the point where it's very concerning.
Yes.
Because this is a child who is adamant that she has to take the AP classes. First of all, this is a child who has a sibling on the spectrum, so I think that's an issue that's kind of important as well. Yeah. Because however she views that, she's having a hard time, and of course she's nowhere near as affected as her sibling if she's affected. Right. And for her, I think there's also this factor of, I'm not dumb. I'm not dumb, so therefore I have to take the hardest classes and I have to get straight A's. And I think she's trying, first of all, she's trying to separate herself from the spectrum to some extent and say, this is not my problem. Right. And you have to allow her to separate herself, because her individuality is not within the spectrum. It never has been. Right. It never will be. She's very, very different, and she needs to find her own weaknesses. Yeah. Kids that are that high functioning, they have to, just like the rest of us, you really just need to allow them to find their own strengths and weaknesses. She's coping and surviving pretty well, despite this issue, and we'll talk about this issue, right. But this is someone who's taking advanced placement classes, right. And she has friends and so on and so forth. Yeah. So let's not jump to titling her or labeling her in one way or another. Let's allow her to, let's just say she's a typical child who's overstressed, okay? Now, she's stressed to the point where it has turned, a certain level of stress is fine. Once apprehension or anxiety hits a certain higher level, it turns into severe depression. And because it becomes so fear-evoking. Anxiety is fear, right? But a certain level of fear is okay. If you have too much fear, it paralyzes you. Once you're paralyzed, that's depression. And that's exactly what's happening to her. She's missing the alarm, which means that she's sleeping very, very late, which means it's affected her sleep. Okay, and then what's happened, it's a bad cycle she's in. So what it sounds like is she's missing her morning alarm, so she's not making it on the bus. You guys are working, so I don't know if she's able to make it to school or she's skipping school that way, which is bad. When you miss school, especially if you're in an AP class, you're going to fall behind much more.
Yeah.
So it becomes a cycle where you're failing. You will fall back behind, and then it becomes more fear-evoking the next day because now you're behind as well. And therefore, now you really can't sleep. First of all, you're exhausted when you get home, so you take a nap, and then you can't wake up. Whenever a child is not willing to wake up, that's the sure sign of depression.
Okay.
Or unless there's something physiological going on, which, obviously you should check her health. But I'm thinking this sounds like depression, because later she'll wake up and then she's awake doing homework into the middle of the night, which means in the morning she's wiped out again. So this is a bad cycle.
Yeah.
Yes, school is almost over, thank God, this year. I mean, we're all kind of struggling with our kids at the end of the year. It's very hard. I don't think, what I think and I don't know her exact age, but I really think if you want to help her, ask her if she wants a tutor. Often schools will offer you tutors, which might be helpful to her at this time. Perhaps someone, not you, mom, because she's already become kind of, we always blame our moms. Maybe dad or someone else can just assist her with doing some homework, or just spend time with her while she's doing her homework. There are many different things involved here. One is persistence. You have to teach her to persist at tasks. The other one is organization, which a lot of kids miss. That's the task planning stuff that is in executive functions. So obviously you could teach her that, but this is not the time. Over the summer, you'd want to teach her just task planning. You asked the question, what can I do over the summer to give her a head start? Trust me, that's the one thing. Task planning is the most important thing that we can do for our kids, which essentially means everything from what is my homework, how much time do I need to put into this or to prepare for a test, and how do I organize my time scheduling and that sort of thing. And then, most important, how do I reinforce myself? Whenever my kids have finals, I will always put them on a schedule where I'll say, you study for an hour, you come down for half an hour, I give you a snack, you do this. And you go back and study for 2 hours, and you come back and do this. And so they have to learn to reward themselves at intervals, otherwise they'll break down. And it's a lot of that sort of thing. Right now, the single thing you can do is try to help her sleep. And what I would do is not allow her to sleep in the afternoon. Somehow figure out a way that she does not go to sleep at 2 o'clock after school. That's really important. Perhaps she stays at school and does homework there for 2 or 3 days, because if you do that for 2 or 3 days, if she can even manage, her sleep cycle will reset. So she'll start being really exhausted at night and sleeping, and then in other words, you have to force her to do her homework right after school for just 2 days maybe. And maybe give her melatonin or something to help her sleep at night. The cycle of anxiety is really interesting because it gets worse the less we sleep, and the more anxiety we have, the less we sleep. So it just keeps feeding itself. So you really need to help her sleep better. That's the number one thing.
So that's got to be the priority for the next couple of days.
Exactly. Because in 2 or 3 days, in about 3 days, our sleep cycle is reset. So if you can try to keep her up, let her just sleep regular hours, and it doesn't matter if she throws a fit or gets upset, whatever, you got to get her through regular hours. I'm telling you, she'll feel a lot better.
Okay.
And then, you know, of course, there's a lot of natural and homeopathic things that are very calming.
Yes.
You know, and you can go to a Whole Foods and buy a whole bunch of these, like valerian and things like this are
Magnesium is great.
magnesium. But there's also things that are like a St. John's wort.
Yeah.
Valerian. These are things that are very calming. So, you know, maybe put some of that in her drink or food or so on.
Yeah. And of course, because it's a mom who has a younger child who's on the spectrum,
Right.
you know, you're juggling. You're juggling, and it's probably stressful for you.
Tremendously.
I would think it's time to call in some reinforcements and say, hey, I need some extra help because I got to put a little bit more attention. We always talk about when the kitchen's on fire. When the kitchen's on fire, you know, stuff gets messy in the living room.
That's
right.
right.
Because you're
That's
putting
right.
out the fire in the kitchen.
That's right.
Now you've got a kitchen in the fire and one in the front bathroom. So,
Right.
you know,
You do need help. I
Yeah.
mean, I sometimes I feel like if I had more help, things would be so much smoother. You got to get some help. I don't know
Yeah.
how you can right now, but
Yeah.
just even if it's temporary help.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, keep us posted and let us know how things go. And maybe as we get closer to the summer, I want to be talking some more about things that we can all be doing over the summer to help our kids, like these, you know, these schedules and planning time. I think I need that class
Yeah.
as much as your
I
teenager
think I should
needs
bring
it.
Nikki to teach that class.
All right,
She's
that's
so
it.
good at that.
We'll have Nikki in to teach that class. But really remarkable stuff that you gave us all to think about. I think we should take a short break, and then we're going to be back with some more of your questions, so stick with us.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Let me think. Oh man, that's a big one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grampachet for a segment that we call Ask Dr. Doreen. Now, we're going to wade into a little bit of a minefield this morning. Okay. Ready? I got an email this morning that had to do with this as well. We have somebody who wrote in and said, I have a brother with autism, and she wrote, autism suffer. And she said he's 12 years old. Do we have some sort of hope for recovery? And I got an email this morning from a viewer who is on the spectrum who said, I was so excited. I just found your show and I was watching part of it and I was so excited and I decided I wanted to learn more about you and about me, they were talking about, and about the people who were involved in the show. And they went and read my bio and saw that I have a son with autism, and that the phrase that I used at that time was that he is recovering from autism. And they said, I am so horrible. My feelings are hurt. I'm offended. And they said, why do those of you who are not on the spectrum use these words, recover and recovering, that it makes it feel like it's a disease. And they were very disappointed. I wrote back a lengthy email to them talking about how I'm learning to choose my words carefully about what I say, but autism is a disorder. My understanding from the DSM-5, it's a disorder. And when I say recovering, I mean from the disabling aspects of autism.
Right. I mean, and this is really an important thing. It's very interesting. If anything, the word disorder should be insulting, right?
Exactly.
But then we all have things like depression or anxiety, and if they become disabling, then they are considered disorders.
Yeah.
And what is that? It means disorder. We're not in order. We're out of order, essentially. And you would say that someone has recovered from depression or has overcome depression or has overcome, I'm sure if we use the word overcome with autism, it would also be somewhat insulting to some people.
Yeah.
So the concept, I want to be very clear of how I more and more every day that as autism increases and as the spectrum widens, I have come to understand the perspective of individuals on the spectrum who will be offended. I have started to understand that over the last few years. Before, I never really understood why it was offensive, but now I'm beginning to understand that. Having said that, though, I want to explain our perspective, or my perspective at least, and here's my perspective. Whenever you have any kind of thing going on that's different from normal, and normal is just is defined by what most people do.
Right.
Okay. I'm not even saying something is normal or abnormal. It is simply what.
And it
most
doesn't make
people
it
do.
good or bad. We're just saying it's what
it is
the majority does.
The norm.
Yeah.
That's why the word is normal. It's the norm. It's what most people do, and it's how society has adapted to what most people do. For instance, if you walk in the door and you don't say hello to anyone, that isn't what most people do.
Right.
Most people, no matter what culture or country you're in, you will greet. So greeting is not something that defines normality or abnormality. It is simply what most people do. So it becomes something that is expected. Okay. And if you don't greet, there's a lot of stuff that results, that bad stuff. For instance, people will think you're arrogant, you're rude, you'll lose opportunities.
That you don't care.
That you don't care about them, you have no empathy.
Right.
They don't want to be your friend, they won't give you jobs, you will not get into, imagine you go for a college application or something, interview, and you don't greet. Something as very simple as just greeting will affect the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Just because of the social norms and expectations that have been set around it. Because that's what we're used to, because most people do that.
Right.
Okay. If you don't do that, you will lose out on a lot of things. Now, how do we express? So that's what, to me, that's what a disorder is. And that's actually how the diagnostic manual defines it as well. The diagnostic manual says, and I've said this many times, you could drink yourself to sleep every night. You could have 2 bottles of scotch every night, but no one will ever diagnose you or say there's anything wrong as long as you're very good to your family and you have a job or you're in school and your adaptive functioning is not in any way influenced.
Right.
Period.
It's not a disorder.
It's not considered a disorder. Something is considered a disorder when it starts to interfere with your day-to-day life. So when, let's say we would have a name for this being, does not greet disorder.
Right.
Then that person, because it would start to affect, they would become isolated, they would not have friends, they would not be able to get the same jobs, they would not be able to go to school, etc., just because of that one feature. That would be considered a disorder because it would make things worse for the individual. It would make them isolated, it would drop them out of society, it would make them depressed, unhappy, anxious, etc., humiliated, and so on. So now let's look at autism. Autism, and there's many gradients of autism, right? So if you are someone who's watching this show and listening to this or reading about Shannon or about us, and actually finding offense in that, you naturally will be very, very high functioning on this spectrum, or will have either sort of Asperger's or PDD. So I want to address you very differently than the classical definition of autism, right? So the very higher functioning person can function. Can function. There's no question. You can function.
Most parents would be thrilled for our children to have the type of autism that you have. We're striving for our children to be as capable as you are.
As you are, and I ask you, do you struggle? Do you struggle in certain ways? Do you struggle with friends? Do you struggle understanding people in social settings? Do you misunderstand people's intentions? All that sort of stuff. Has it held you back? And if it has, are there things you would like to learn in your life to improve those things, to get over those obstacles? For instance, if you are that person who doesn't greet, how easy would it be to learn to greet?
Right.
And once you greet people, you will have more friends. People will give you better opportunities. They'll give you better options. They'll respect you. They'll think you care about them, etc., etc. So some very simple changes, interventions, treatments can help anyone who is already functional join the mainstream. Now, those who are actually diagnosed with autism, or ASD, or autistic disorder as it used to be, cannot function independently. Let's be very, very clear with that. These are individuals who are severely affected in their area of social development, in their area of language communication, and in their which will then influence things like independence skills, adaptive skills, safety skills, academic, everything. They cannot function. So as parents, do we want our children to actually learn all these areas so that they can now join society? Yes, we do. Absolutely, there's no question. With time passing, and with now 1 in 42 boys or 1 in 68 children, pretty soon, who knows? The norm is changing. If you thought about it, as the norm changes, as the majority of people in the world change, then perhaps more and more individuals with high functioning, like PDD or Asperger's, will actually be able to independently survive and not need to in any way learn new skills. But let me tell you, a child who's nonverbal and doesn't have eye contact and is aggressive and has absolutely no desire to be amongst others and has all sorts of also physiological issues and this and that and the other thing, is not happy going through life that way. No. And all we're trying to do is teach our children some skills that will help them go through life. So whether you call it remediation, recovery, assistance, support, tutoring, whatever it is, whatever the word is, our intention with using the word recovered was never something bad. It never implied that you were recovering from something horrible. Right. It simply meant that you were learning skills in order to join the mainstream. And that, I don't know what word we have in English for that, but if we do, we'll be happy to switch to that word. I've been looking for that word.
I'm going to make a new word.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a new word.
Absolutely.
Because it hurts me that it hurts individuals for us to use that word.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, here's a young woman who's writing in about her 12-year-old brother and wants to know, is there a possibility of recovering? And I know from what I have seen that individuals get to the point where they no longer, they're still unique, they're still wonderful, they have their own way of viewing the world. All the good things that we think about that come with autism are still there, but the disabling aspects are no longer there.
That's exactly the point. That's very, very well said. Something took me half an hour and you said it in my... That's the point, Jan. That's the point. It's no longer disabling, and that's the issue. And just help us, for those viewers who really are offended by the word recovered, help us find another word. Because wouldn't it be also offensive if we said remediated from autism?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it also be offensive if we said overcome autism?
Yeah.
So is it really the word that is a problem, or is it the fact that we're trying to change an individual who has these symptoms. And why would that be offensive? Because I know some people are just leave us alone, don't change us. And what I need to get through to the audience is, why would you reject change of any kind if it's an improvement, if it's going to help you in the world? And, you know, that's like someone saying, well, it's not necessarily an improvement, but it is. Yeah. It really is. Learning how to interact with people, learning how to express yourself, learning how to understand other people's intentions, and so on. So these are improvements because they make your life easier.
And I get the sort of double-edged side of it, and the older my child gets, the more I'm learning, right? Yeah. And then he says something and it informs me in another way that I think all the time about when I was trying to teach him how to get out of the car, because he took so long and we were on a very busy street. Every day we would park on this busy street, and I was trying to teach him how to get out of the car. And I said to him finally, I said, look, I just need you to do it this way. In frustration, I said, this is the way you need to do it. And he paused for a second.
You said, why?
And he said, Mom, do you have autism too? Because I was being inflexible. And in that moment, I realized, oh, I need you to do it my way because I'm inflexible. And I see when people say, well, why do our kids have to do it this way? Why doesn't the rest of the world figure out a different way to do it? I understand what that frustration is.
Do you know what? And I'm so glad you said that, because the one thing I wanted to say is, with these current prevalence rates, I don't even know if in another generation or two we're merging. We're merging right now. The prevalence of autism is going so high. It's just increasing to the point where the world is changing. Absolutely. You guys, you know, this is what's fascinating for me. Think about just 10 years ago, maybe, Shannon, maybe 20 years ago, I don't know. If someone sat around a dinner table 20 years ago and held a little box and just typed in it, 5 people, that would be the most abnormal, ridiculous thing. We'd be laughing at it, right? But that is the norm. Any restaurant you walk into, everyone is on their phones texting someone or something like that. We didn't even have text here a few years ago. It has now taken over this behavior of calling people, right? So behavior changes over the course of time, but you have to be able to adapt to what the norm is in order to be able to function. It's just that simple.
And my response always is about why we worked so intensively with our son is because that moment a couple of years ago when we were at somebody's house and he wasn't able to connect with the other kids. He wanted to, and he had like 10 of the required 12 skills to be able to connect with the other kids and get them to play, but he was missing 2. And what it resulted in was him laying on the floor in the hallway crying and saying, why can't I get them to play with me?
That's so heartbreaking.
And as a mom, I was like, we will get you the skills. We will work on that so that you will be able to do it, because I want what he wants. And he wants to be able to connect. And he did when he was 3. When he was hitting his head on the kitchen floor, he wanted to connect. He just didn't know how to in a way that didn't hurt him.
I completely understand that. And so really it's an option for people. It really is. It's like, you know, you talk, just look at typical people. Then why do we ever complain about, why do we think that there's anything odd about people who are hermits? Right? They choose to be. They choose to stay away from society and go and live in a shack somewhere and never come out and talk to anyone at all, ever. Okay. Now, is that a healthy, adaptive life? Well, you know what? If they're fine with it, then they're fine with it. But the issue is, as you're pointing out, most of our kids are not fine with it. They want to be able to interact with other kids, and they want to be able to gain access to all the things in life that typically developing kids have access to. And having said that, the curve is changing, so please keep that in mind. And as I'm saying, like, we really do understand your perspective, but I really would love some help on differentiating. Is it the word, or is it really the fact that we're trying to help and people feel they don't need help? But why isn't it, and I feel like that's wrong. That's the portion I disagree with.
Right.
I feel like everyone needs help to improve. That's the whole purpose of our lives. That's why we're here as well, to learn to improve. And if somebody came along in fact, there are people that I learn from all the time, right?
Yes.
That's why we follow people like Deepak Chopra and so on, because they're here to teach us. And if you then look at them and say, why are you claiming to try to teach me anything, you know, and it's offensive that you would think I have anything to learn.
Right.
That's not the attitude to have either.
No. So back to her question.
Yes.
Her brother's 12 years old and in her words is suffering with autism. And is there some sort of hope for recovery for a 12-year-old? It's a loaded question.
It is, and it's one of those situations where unfortunately I can't respond because I don't know your brother, I don't know his level of impairment, I don't know how affected he is.
Yeah.
I have had children who've gone through the process until they were like 13, 14 and then sort of came out of it at that point, but I just don't know his level of impairment.
But we can safely say that progress is available for this 12-year-old.
Absolutely right. There's progress throughout the lifetime. The fact that all of the focus of behavioral intervention is on early childhood means nothing. We use ABA to teach people all day long, all the time. I change behavior here at CARD using ABA throughout all of my staff. So yes, there's a lot.
And by the way, for people who are on the spectrum and people who are not on the spectrum,
anyone here, yeah,
we're all making progress. That's what life is about.
Absolutely. I just sent out an email to a bunch of supervisors last night. They responded. I learned something. It's very simple. It's an antecedent, a behavior, and a consequence.
There we go.
And I learned a lot, actually, from my supervisors. So what I'm saying is, you know, we really all are, this is what we're doing. ABA can work for anyone at any time, at any age, any level of deficiency or deficit or problem. But I can't answer because I don't, and recovery is possible for people of different ages depending on the level of impairment. If it's a very, if it's a significant impairment, then I would really not necessarily, I don't think anybody should just be aiming at recovery. I think that is possibly one of the problems with the word recovery, is that it seems to be like a line over which you are recovered and under which you're not. And it's not like that. It's a gradient. It's sort of like, just like you said earlier, you gain enough skills to become able to mingle and find the things in life that you want, and you are then, for your own purposes, recovered. And like I said, once you are no longer struggling in your adaptive life, in your emotional, personal life, you are recovered. I don't care if you still have some of the symptoms. It is no longer considered a disorder or a disability because it's not affecting your personal or your social life.
And progress is progress, and there are many other meaningful outcomes other than recovery.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we should take another break, and then we're going to come back with more with Dr. Granpeesheh for Ask Dr. Doreen. Stick with us.
Hi, this is Lisa Ackerman. Talk of Facts. One of the questions we hear all the time: how do I know if a treatment is working? If my child has a negative response or looks like a negative response? Well, there's two things you should look for. All medical interventions need to have clear evaluation guidelines with your physician. You should talk to your doctor ahead of time. If there's a negative response, should you stop, or does the negative response mean that treatment's working? Let me give you a really solid example. Almost every child living with autism at one point in time will have a yeast overgrowth. And yeast is extremely common in children with gut and gastrointestinal issues. And when you're not pooping on a regular basis, yeast and other bacteria tend to build up in your gut. Once you treat yeast, often you will have a negative response. What's really important for families to understand, in those clear evaluation guidelines with your doctor, they should tell you, hey, your kid may be cranky for a few days following the treatments. There are different things you can do to work with your doctor to lessen that cranky period. But the bottom line is, if you don't have clear evaluation guidelines with your physician, you don't know if that treatment is a stop. You have a negative response, stop, which that should be clear with your doctor, versus a negative response of, that means the treatment's working. So my favorite thing when we talk to families that are about to go through yeast treatments with their kid after extensive evaluation in labs is, your kid's going to be a jerk, but oh my God, it's going to be great in a few days, followed by beautiful behavior. So now you know. We'll be back with another Talk of Fact real soon. Take care.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen and Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grampichet and having her answer our questions, which is such a delight. We have something, we're growing a library of videos for the show where experts answer one of the top questions in autism, and we give them 2 minutes in which to do that. Sometimes it feels a little too much like a game show, but and then we are making those available for you on our YouTube page. And our question for Dr. Doreen Grampichet this morning is, what is the difference between autism and mental retardation?
Okay. So autism and mental retardation are actually very, very different from each other. So, and I define both sort of from a clinical perspective. Autism is diagnosed when there are a number of different symptoms present. When there's and these symptoms indicate a pretty significant level of, let's say, difficulty within the social area of functioning. So, and as well as the presence of certain stereotypical repetitive behaviors. So autism is only diagnosed when an individual has pretty significant social deficits and pretty significant stereotypical behaviors, okay? And then the new version of autism, you can have different severity levels to those things, and you can have language impairment or minimal language impairment or no language impairment along with it. And you can have intellectual disability or no intellectual disability. Intellectual disability is mental retardation. And mental retardation is only defined as not scoring within the norm on standardized measures of intelligence, IQ. The intelligence measure, the IQ, intelligence quotient, is a fraction, which is your mental age over your chronological age times 100. That's how you get an IQ. So if your mental age is, let's say, 5, and your chronological age is 5, then that fraction becomes 1 times 100 becomes 100. So normal IQ is 100 because our mental age and our chronological age are the same. In other words, we do things that all other people our age do. Okay, so it's the same. So whether you're 50 or 5, your IQ will come out to be 100. Now, if your mental age is higher than, let's say, your chronological age, then of course your IQ becomes above 100. That fraction works out to make your IQ higher. If your mental age is lower, then your IQ becomes lower than 100. And if your mental age is lower, that means mentally you're not doing all the things that people of the same chronological age are doing. That's what IQ is. That's what mental retardation is. Now, mental retardation, to be very, very, clear about it, only begins at scores below 85. So 100 being the normal IQ, 85 to 115 is also kind of within the norm. Anything below that starts to go into borderline and then starts going into mental retardation. So what that means is that the individual's actual abilities as measured on these tests are more than one standard deviation different, more than 15 points different than the vast majority of people, which then starts to make you sort of a much smaller percentage of people. Like you're lower than a very small group of people would have that level of problem, let's say. So autism, while it can include mental retardation, doesn't have to.
Okay.
And so they're very, very different things. In fact, most people with autism don't have mental retardation.
Okay. Thank you so much
Tried
for
to
making
keep
that
in 2 minutes. I don't know if I went
I think
over.
you did a great job. I think that's wonderful. Now, we also had somebody who wrote in and said, can you recommend some good resources to help me teach my son theory of mind skills? And they said, thank you so much.
Sure, and of course the best resource we have for that is our Skills online program. So I would really recommend that you go to skillsforautism.com, and you will you have a free I think 2-week period on there, and so you can go in and you'll see a section of skills called cognition. It's part of one of the domains that we teach, and cognition is all theory of mind. So in that domain you'll find lessons such as teaching the individual to understand cause and effect, perspective taking, and everything that goes with follows perspective taking. So like being able to tell jokes, lies, understand other people's feelings, etc.
It's actually a very fun part of the curriculum.
It is. It's an awesome part of the curriculum.
It's fun to work through with a child. That's surprising. Like, you wouldn't think that would be the case, but it actually is very fun.
Right. So true.
So definitely check that out. We also had somebody who wrote in and said, I have a 5-year-old that I'm trying to potty train. He will sit down, but no action. Any tips? Also, he is about to age out of the early development program in North Carolina, and we don't want him to get thrown in the public school system. What options do we have?
That's so cute. He will sit down, but no action.
No action.
Potty training you have to actually teach. I've recommended this many times as the Fox and Azrin procedure. It should be found easily online as well. And it is a very well-known behavioral procedure. You essentially, over the course of, I'll just quickly summarize it, but you should read it because there's a lot of detail involved with it. Over the course of 2 or 3 days, you really massively give your child a lot of liquids. And this is a training procedure that requires a lot of attention for about 2 days. And it might be shorter, but it might go the duration of the 2 days or a little bit longer. But essentially, when we do potty training, we really focus the whole day on the child. And you will make the bathroom a very pleasant place because you'll be spending most of the day in the bathroom. So you will start with sitting on the bathroom for longer intervals of time, usually about 15-minute intervals. And since he's been drinking a lot of water, he will actually want to, or drinks, juice, whatever, he will actually have more to void. So you will start with a longer period of time on the bathroom, on the toilet, and very short intervals off the toilet. So like 15 minutes on, 1 minute off, 15 minutes on, 1 minute off. So that's why you kind of need to make sure the bathroom is a pleasant place. You could have a TV set in there, or books, music, whatever is interesting, games, and so on. And as your child has success during the when your child has success, obviously you allow a break. And massive reinforcers.
The party.
Right, massive. Reinforce the child like there's no tomorrow. And then what you do is you gradually reduce the interval sitting on the toilet and increase the interval of time off the toilet so that it reverses. By the end of the second day, you're hoping that you are able to have the child off the toilet for 15 to 30 minute intervals and then go to the toilet void and then come back out. So it's a gradual shaping procedure. It's very, very successful. And if it doesn't work the first time, just try it again another weekend. I do suggest that you get some professional help because you don't want to mess around with potty training too many times and make it unsuccessful. You don't want to make it aversive. But it is something that you should have great success with if you have someone who's a behaviorist, analyst, yeah.
And then in terms of they don't want to go to public school in North Carolina, do you have any recommendations, anything that you know of in North Carolina?
No, I don't, unfortunately, but I'm trying to figure out a way to put them in touch with the director of IBT, obviously, who lives in North Carolina. So it would be maybe a good thing if you went on the Institute for Behavioral Training Cecilia Knight, and also her husband, Mark Knight, who has his own agency out there, would be very good people to talk to. And the best way to get in touch with them is through IBT, the Institute for Behavioral Training.
ibehavioraltraining.com.
ibehavioraltraining.com, and ask if you could have a small consult with Cecilia Knight, and she might be able to refer you to Mark, and Mark will have a lot of information about your choices.
Okay, really good to know. I think at some point we should do could we do a whole hour on potty training?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you should probably do a whole hour on potty training and do it with one of the research team, like Jonathan.
Okay.
He was just saying to me that now that we have them over, like really going into all of our cases, he said the majority of people are asking questions about potty training.
Yeah, it is always an amazing thing to me because as a parent, it's the single most overwhelming thing, right?
Right.
It's it's like on the big five, that they're going to get, and your life changes when your child is potty training. And to BCBAs, it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Oh, we're going to potty train. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
And I would love to bring those two things together, those two perspectives to make it more possible for parents.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we're out of time, but thank you so much. As always, it's such a complete pleasure. Continue to write in your questions. We'll have Dr. Grant-Pichet back next week, and we'll be answering more of your questions. We're going to take a break now and go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made about the little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. And we're really at the point in the series now where they're doing that intensive behavioral intervention and things are starting to make sense for Jack Riley. That doesn't mean that there's no pushback, but take a look, watch this, and then when we come back, Nancy Alspaugh Jackson will be here, and our very special guest, Christine Duffley, the mother of Christopher Duffley, that amazingly talented little boy who not only has autism but is also blind, but a beautiful, beautiful singer and a light in this world. So first, take a look. This is the A Word.
Hey, Zach Riley. Hi. Hi. Can you wave? You're waving. Hi. Hi. Good job. What is this? Is it a toy? Toy. Toy. Good talking. Wow. Should we open? Horse. It is a horse. Do you want to open it? Horse. Yeah, it is a horse. Do you want to open? Open. Wow. So you have 1, 2. You have 2 pieces. Do you want more? Okay, here. You want another horse? I have another horse for you. It's a horse. Here you go. You say, I want more. Yeah, more.
Now that Jack Riley is talking, Jessica is trying to build his vocabulary by having him say short phrases instead of one-word demands.
Say, I want more. Say, I want more. Say, want more. Good trying. All done, or you want more? More. Okay. Okay. All right, should we put it away? No. No? Do you want more? More. Okay.
He has mastered the use of that word.
Yeah. I swear, like today he's like a different kid, and I saw him, just Tuesday? That's amazing.
We went to a restaurant last night. He ate his own food, but he fed himself in the restaurant.
Good. What did you bring your own food?
Yeah, we bring our own food for him. He did great.
Will he try any of the foods that you have?
Well, we have to be careful because of the gluten and casein thing. So we don't let him actually if it's a normal restaurant.
Okay.
Although the place we went has gluten-free pizza.
Oh, that's pretty
So we're
cool.
gonna try that next time maybe.
It's really good. Because as soon as you guys have him tested and everything, maybe we might want to try new foods with him.
Okay.
Introduce him to new foods. That would be good.
Right.
Okay, all right. 1 minute's up. All done. We can play with it later, okay? Clean up. Clean up. Oh, good listening. Thanks. Is this your baby sister? Hopefully.
Yes.
It's a girl?
Sister.
I knew it. I knew it. I was telling him.
Jack, can you say sister? Can you say sister? Sister.
I knew it. I was telling Cheryl too. I was like, I know it's a girl. I have this feeling it's a girl.
Yeah.
She's like, that's what we hope, but it's probably going to be a boy.
No, I said it was a girl. God has a sense of humor.
Oh, how cute. This is the newest edition? Yeah, is it upside down? I cannot tell. I think that's her head.
Yeah, she's
right?
Almost 18 weeks.
Oh. Baby sister's coming.
I think she's gonna be like me. I was very protective of my little sister.
Wait. 2D to 3D. Okay. So we're going to be doing matching identicals. So 2D pictures, and he's going to match them to the 3D object in a field of 3. So this is the first day I'm going to be doing it, so we'll see if he can discriminate between the two and see if he can actually match and scan the field. Look, Chuck Riley, do you want book or cracker?
Jessica is doing a preference assessment to see which item Jack Riley wants as his reward when he finishes his task.
Put what's same. That's the same. Look, they're both dinosaurs. Can you try? Put what's same.
Right now, Jessica is prompting Jack Riley what to do since this is new for him. Once he understands what is being asked of him, Jessica's prompting will fade away.
That's the same. Jack Riley, try. Put what's same. What's same? Right here. This is the same. That's the same. Jack Riley, try. Put what's same. The same. That's the same. You try. Put what's same. The same. No. Right here. Match it to the dinosaur. Yeah, like that. That's the same. There we goes. Yeah. Can you do Jack Riley? Okay, try again. Put what's same. Put what's same. Yeah, that's the same. There we goes. There you go. All right, helicopter's gonna go here. Here you go. Put what's same. Like this, watch. This is same. You try. Put what's same. Yeah, that's right. They're the same. Good job. Here you go. I'm gonna hold on to that guy. Thanks. Put what's same. This is the same. You try. Put what's same. Yeah, that's the same. And try it again. Here. Put what's same. That's right. That's the same. Good job. What is this? Is it a duck? It's a duck. Is it a duck? Say duck. Duck. Good. What sound does a duck make? Quack, quack, quack. Here you go. We actually started a new program called Yes No, where we're reteaching him how to say yes for things that he wants to play. Like, for example, like if he wants to watch a movie or something really, really reinforcing. So we're going to teach that to him in airless learning, meaning that we're going to prompt him all the way when we're first starting to teach him the new skill, and then fade out our prompts eventually once he starts to get the hang of saying yes to things that he wants to play with instead of just saying no to everything. So we give him another word that he can utilize. He even seems to say no to things that he does want to. So that's why we want to okay when he wants things. But yes, seems to be more functional. Let's go!
Jessica, Mike, Cheryl, and Jack Riley are going outside to practice stop, which is still a safety issue because he doesn't always comply. Jessica wants to see how often Jack Riley listens to them and follows the direction.
Stop!
Stop. Yeah, remember? No.
Try again.
For now, pausing for a moment is verbally rewarded since he is complying. With practice, the duration which he pauses will become longer.
Stop.
That's not a stop.
Try again.
Try again.
Try again, honey.
Try again. Stop. Yeah.
What?
Good stop.
What?
Good stop.
Leave it.
Stop. Stop. That's not a good stop. Try again. Try again. Okay, stop. Good. Keep stopping. This is how we get him back to the house when he's lollygagging. Yeah, he's usually happy on. He wasn't in the mood to play anymore, so.
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy.
And we have CAN on our heads again.
We do.
And Shannon, will you explain to everyone what that means?
Yes, and I have it on my hand as well. Coverage for Autism Now. This is a campaign that Nancy and I have put forward. We want everybody to participate with us. It's actually next Wednesday. It's a week from today that we're asking all of you to wear CAN somewhere.
Yes.
To support and stand in solidarity with those families who have not yet been able to access the benefits of coverage for autism. We want to level this playing field, and we want everybody to know that we're not leaving anybody behind, right?
Right.
There's been some progress on this, that many people, you're one of the lucky ones that you have started to get coverage through your insurance,
Yes.
right?
It's been I can't even tell you the lifesaver it's been for us.
And for many people, and that's great progress, and we celebrate that, right? That's wonderful, but there are many people who are still in dire need of services and don't have it covered for insurance for various and sundry reasons. They might have a self-funded plan.
Yes.
So it's not covered. They might not be able to afford the deductible and the copay.
That's very often the case. We give a lot of grants. We're giving a lot of grants this next cycle at Act Today for copays. So that's something a lot of families just can't afford.
And there are still other families that they're on Medicare, and depending on which state you're in, it may not be covered. So we want everybody to know we stand in solidarity. There may be lots of things to disagree about in the autism community, but on this we should all be in agreement. So write CAN, you can put it on your forehead, you can put it on your hand, put it on your wrist, put it on your shirt, put it on, write it with a magic marker on a t-shirt, put it on a hat somewhere on your person for one day, take a picture of it, send it to us. We want to send it off to the lawmakers and say, look, this is important. We're not leaving these people behind.
Right.
We can
do this together.
That's right. So,
all right, in the news, Shannon.
We've got a lot of things going on. Now, the first one, this was something that really touched a nerve with you.
It touched a nerve with me when I read it, and it came from Senator Steinberg's office, and I appreciate Bob Giavatti there, who sends us all of these articles on a weekly basis, everything that he sees having to do with
it keeps us
ASD.
informed, keeps our blood pressure up sometimes.
And I promptly wrote a reply to everybody on the email list, who are a lot of movers and shakers in the autism community.
So first of all, this appeared in The Atlantic,
which is big.
It's huge publication.
Huge.
The article was 1 in 68 children now has a diagnosis of autism disorder. Why?
Okay.
And it's by Enrico Nalti.
Nalati.
Okay.
Yes. And I will try to give you the gist of this article and then my response to it. He goes on to say that now 1 in 68 children has a diagnosis of ASD, which we know, a 30% increase in just 2 years. The staggering increase in cases of ASD should raise more suspicion in the medical community about its misdiagnosis and overdiagnosis than it does. Promoting early screening is imperative. But is it possible that the younger in age a child is when professionals screen for ASD, especially its milder cases, the greater the risk that a slow to mature child will be misperceived as autistic, thus driving the numbers up? Okay, so he goes on to say that that basically he believes that a lot of children are being inaccurately diagnosed with ASD when in fact they are slow developers.
Yeah, he even goes so far as to say, he says, they're now on the hunt for atypical behaviors, as if there's a team of pediatricians and psychiatrists that are out there with, you know, these loaded microscopes that are like, let me see an atypical behavior because I just can't wait to diagnose autism without looking further.
And he also makes a statement that it is highly unlikely that a child who is moderately, the child that is a slow learner will be diagnosed with moderate to severe autism. So, and that parents could be subjected to several years of intense anxiety over whether their child has autism or not when their children are young and toddlers. My response to this, and I will tell you what it is, I said clearly the author believes the epidemic is all about better diagnosis, along with an increase of misdiagnosis of boys who are delayed but not on the autism spectrum, and doesn't think we should make parents anxious. I said, what about the opposite case? He brings the case of the fact that it is unlikely that a child who's a slow developer will be diagnosed with moderate to severe autism. I said, what about the opposite case? Well, that happened to me. A moderately autistic child who was even a little more on the severe end, who was not initially diagnosed until he was 3.5, and at that point incorrectly with PDD-NOS, and was not accurately diagnosed with moderate autism until he was 4, and did not receive proper care and treatment until he was 5. And I had resources. I said I would trade a few years of anxiety for the possibility of a misdiagnosis, being incorrectly diagnosed with ASD rather than being simply a slow learner, for what has turned into a lifetime of anxiety over accessing the proper care and treatment for my 12-year-old son, who is now high functioning thanks to years of ABA therapy and other interventions, and the future anxiety over his future. And I have resources. Who will care for the least of these families?
Yeah, it's, you know, what's interesting about it is that this, and there are many things that he says in the article, and people should read it, and he does encourage, you know, people to get checked early.
And he does say that a lot of families will be sending their children to professionals that really don't know about autism. I agree with him about that.
I agree with him about that as well.
Okay.
But I do think it's important that, you know, if you have concerns, what we want to do is urge you to seek out good professionals. Let's do the right thing.
Yes.
Let's not talk about what ifs and what if, you know, let's do the right thing. If you have concerns, it's time to go see a good expert, check to make sure that that's what you're doing.
Right.
That's the best thing to do.
It is. And take it from someone who was told, late talker, he's a boy, slow learner. I was told that for 2 years when my child could have been diagnosed by a trained chimpanzee if they'd had the... Yeah. Okay, so I rest my case.
There we go. Now, we've got a bunch of different news stories to cover. There is now a lawsuit over the Disney Pass.
Yes, there is.
And this, on April 3rd, mothers of 16 children and young adults with developmental disabilities filed a lawsuit against Walt Disney theme parks for violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act. We've covered this on the show, that they changed their guest assistance pass to a guest disability pass. It has changed the way in which people go to Disneyland, and so now there is a lawsuit, and we will keep you posted on that. They argue that the policy that the Disney has right now is not helpful due to the nature of their children's disabilities, because what Disney did was say, we're not going to make the line shorter for you, we're not going to make the wait shorter for you, we're just going to give you distractions. Go do something else in the park, and that the nature of autism means that more kids are going to be having more meltdowns, because to say to the child, we're not going on this ride now, we have to wait 40 minutes, we know that our kids don't respond to that.
And I really, the plaintiff, its attorney, Andy Degali of Tampa, Florida, says, until recently, parents of developmentally disabled children universally adored Disney because of the way Disney caringly accommodated their children. The absolute joy their children felt and showed for hours on end was unattainable anywhere else. Disney rolled out this new system supposedly to solve an abuse problem. But these folks never contributed to the abuse problem. And when Disney solved the so-called problem by changing its rules for wheelchair access, there was no reason to change its rules for autism too, enacting changes which are cruelly discriminatory under the ADA. No reasonable mind could ever conclude anything other than that Disney willingly abandoned them.
And we've talked to Disney about this in the past, and they have said, give us some time, we'll perfect this. It's been 6 months now, so we'll look forward to a response from Disney. Disney has always been good to our community.
Always.
This is a bit of a black mark, but we hope that they will be willing to look at this and make necessary changes.
Yes, we are in the negotiation stages probably now with them, the autism community, and I think some diplomacy is necessary.
There we go. Now, in another story, very disheartening, but I really appreciated this article. It's titled "The Death No One Cares About," and it's about Christina Sankey. And you may have seen this on Facebook as well. It's been getting some traction in our community on Facebook. A young woman, 37 years old, but had the mental capacity of a 2-year-old on the autism spectrum, but also comorbid, that she had intellectual disability.
Yes.
From a poor family, without means, and there was an aide who was assigned to be with her.
Do you know what city this was in?
It's in Philadelphia.
Okay, Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Right. And an aide was assigned to be with her, and the aide took her shopping. There are many who are saying, why? Why was she even taken shopping? She has the mental capacity of a 2-year-old.
Getting out is important.
I think so too. I don't take issue with that. Right. But in any case, the woman who was assigned to take care of her lost her in the store, and unfortunately Christina Sankey died. They found her frozen between 2 cars, missing her top several miles away from where she was lost. They have deemed this just an accident. They have said that there's no foul play, and there are many in the community who are saying, how can you say that? How can you say that there's no foul play, and that it's getting absolutely no traction in the media?
No traction, and she goes on to say that had she been an adorable toddler, there would have been, the city would have been galvanized by her death. Government officials would have promised to find out how she met her tragic end. Someone would have created sidewalk memorials. Others would have led prayer vigils to honor the life that was lost had she been an angel-faced toddler. Instead, being a 37-year-old woman with the mentality of a 2-year-old, but not the physique, 5 foot tall, 160 pounds, severely autistic, she would grunt in ways that are precious in babies, but odd in adults, and poor. Why can't we be galvanized by this? These are among the many people, individuals with autism that are found dead and abused. And why can't we care? Where is the outrage? And I think that this case deserves so much more.
Yeah, absolutely.
They need to find out what happened.
Well, but they've deemed it not suspicious, although they have said, a representative for the city's commission department said, like all Philadelphians, we're shocked and saddened to learn of Christina's tragic and untimely passing. I'm speechless about it, though, because it's been ruled not suspicious. It's very sad.
I'm just going to leave you with the words of Christina's mother. No one cares about my daughter. She was poor. She was disabled. She was not going to set the world on fire, but she was my world.
And there we have it. Now, ongoing, we have another story for you that I thought was very interesting about from York University about the lipid levels during prenatal development that can impact autism. So we're talking about just before you get pregnant and the first trimester. They're saying that your lipids in your blood could play a part, and in this study, they're advocating that you really, if you're getting pregnant or you're in your first trimester, that you curtail or greatly diminish some of your personal care products that may be found to raise your lipid level. So I found that absolutely fascinating, and we won't go into all the details about it, but that's a York University study and looking at different ingredients in like shampoo and cosmetics that could cause a difference in your lipid level, and they're looking at the lipids and seeing that there is potentially something that it is interacting that could leave you more likely to have a child with autism.
Okay, here's my question on this, and I know you're not a scientist either, even though we're semi-scientists because we're mothers of children with autism. We're semi-attorneys,
Right.
Okay, so all of these individual studies, lipids, lack of folic acid, living close to a freeway when you're pregnant, being exposed to this, that, or the other, how in the heck are we going to figure out what combination of these things together might be causing this, and who's doing those studies?
I'm glad you asked, because we are in final negotiations to have David Humphrey on the show on the 30th of this month. And we've had him on the show before, and he is an integral part of some research that's being done about those very things. I think what we're going to find is that, you know, if you just live near a freeway, it's probably a negligible amount and it's not going to push you over the edge. But it's when you put the freeway together with the cosmetics, with all these other things, you know, when the FDA approves something and they say it's okay for you to use that thing. They don't consider using that thing in combination with other things. So, you know, David Humphreys is doing, is part of some testing that's being done on pregnant women and women who are not yet pregnant, and eliminating as many of these factors from their lives at a crucial point in the development of the fetus, and seeing what happens to those children. And the percentages, and they're replicating it now. They've already done a couple of these studies, but now they're replicating in a bigger study. What they see is that those children, not only do they not have autism, and I'm saying don't have autism, 0%. Like, the percentage should be significantly higher if we're following, you know, typical statistics. But it's 0 present, but they're not having childhood diabetes, they're not having childhood cancers, all of these other things that these children, once they are born, we're not seeing them at all.
And he's actually able to isolate those factors?
Well, what they're able to do is say, they're saying, you know, we're going to put you on a protocol of a certain things that will help your system. So they're putting on some vitamins and some supplements. And they're removing like the top 14 thing, and I'm choosing 14 as a number. I don't know exactly, but removing all of these different things. So they're not isolating and saying, oh, look, it's the freeway. Oh, look, it's the lipids. They're saying, what if these things are working in conjunction? But they're getting good results. And that's going to drive.
But what about, you know, the average person that can't live in New Zealand, you know.
These are people who are living in the state of California, but they're just making sure that, for instance, and I don't know what the whole level of, and we'll have David talk about this specifically on the 30th. But, you know, there are certain things that we know, oh, well, if you don't have a certain kind of filling in your head, then you have less mercury in your body. So, you know, I would assume that some of these women are getting dental work done the year before they get pregnant, so that they've rid their body of all that, that they're making sure that they're, you know, it's within reason. These are women who have not been sent away on an island. But they've said, I'm going to make sure that I'm not putting this kind of cream on my head. I'm not going to, you know, and following a very specific protocol, and it's working. This is the good news. This is the good news. Because we can...
So then it clearly shows that the environmental triggers and environmental toxins are playing a huge role.
Well, we know that already.
We do.
I mean, it's been scientifically shown that there is a hereditary component, absolutely, but we know for a fact now that there is an environmental component that's like the gun and the trigger. The heredity loads the gun, and environment pulls the trigger. And if we can remove one aspect, that's been the question recently, if we can remove one aspect, where are we then? And if we can remove the things that are being shown to really make an effect, we're finding that it does reset things.
Okay. It sounds, though, like with the latest numbers, we're not removing the triggers.
I think most of us don't know which things to remove, which is why David is an incredible resource. And again, on the 30th, we'll let you know more about that. Okay, and then one last thing, and then we've got to get to our guest. You brought this to my attention. The Child Mind Institute posted the NIMH chief
National Institute of Mental Health
made some comments recently about the fact that there is so much
division
in the community of
autism community.
And he said the reason why is because there are 4 kingdoms, 4 schools of thought. He said the first one is there's a group of people that think that they see autism as an illness. Those with this view see autism spectrum disorders as a neurodevelopmental disorder. This group is looking for genetic factors or biomarkers with cure as a goal.
Okay.
Then there is another group that says they see autism as an injury. This camp sees ASD as a response to an environmental insult of some sort, making autistic children the canaries in the coal mine who might just be warning us of the effects of toxins or even climate change. Here, the goal is prevention. Then there is another group who sees autism as an insight. This viewpoint sees autism as a window into the social brain. Here, the goal is comprehending the fundamentals of how the brain grows and functions. And then the last group sees autism as an identity. Here, autism is seen as a disability. Adults on the spectrum have become self-advocates who focus on functional outcomes. The goal is inclusion, with advocates themselves as part of a civil rights movement with the motto, "Nothing about us without us," which is the self-advocate cry.
I am all of those. I'm all of those. So I don't understand why he segments them so much. And I kind of think a lot of people in our community are all of those. I'm see the first one was autism as an illness. An illness. Well, I do believe that there's a genetic biomarkers.
Absolutely.
I do believe that there are some genetics that go into this or immune dysfunction. But I don't see that that's different than seeing it as the number 2 thing.
As an injury.
As an injury, which when those toxins, which epigenetics, when toxins combined can alter genes.
Yeah.
So, and then number 3,
autism as an insight, which we agree.
I see autism as an insight.
Which we agree.
And number 4, I see
autism as an identity.
As an identity, because clearly so many have it, and we're going to have to accommodate.
Yeah.
Why do all of these things have to be at war, these sections?
Well,
that's how he's saying we're having an issue here, and we'll never be able to address it, right? Isn't that what he ultimately says?
Until we can all get on the same page. No, there are companies who want to spend money on research, and they say, I don't want to because this community is so confused and they can't all get on the same page, which I think we need to address.
I agree with that.
We need to fix.
But I don't see that all of those 4 things he mentions are necessarily at odds with one another. I think they can be blended.
I think we're at odds, I was saying this to Emily this morning, I think we need to create a new set of words that when we talk about autism, if you have a very young child with autism, you look at that and see that as something that you need, it's urgent, there's a problem, and you need to get in there and work with your child.
To get them as high functioning as possible.
Absolutely. If you are a parent of a 16-year-old with autism on the spectrum, you're looking at autism as a word that describes how unique your child is and the incredible things that they're capable of.
And you want inclusion for them, and you want their talents to be recognized.
This word means so many different things at different points in your life, and I don't think we have enough words to describe what's happening. We need to create new words. We need to create words that stand for autism that keeps us unique and autism that disables. Those should not be the same word. And we've done this many times in our life. When one word didn't function in all the ways that we needed it to, we've created other words.
Well, we've seen it in the civil rights movement.
Absolutely.
I mean, words have been, discarded. New words have come in.
Absolutely.
And I think I find it hard to believe there's not anybody in this community that doesn't agree that a child with severe autism who has self-injurious behaviors doesn't deserve care and treatment to bring them up to the level where they can be best functioning. Or on the other end of the spectrum. An adult with Asperger's who longs to contribute to society should not be included and given a chance for their gifts to be out there.
But the words are stopping us from coming together. We need new words. That's what I think. That's my belief. But in any case, we have great words to describe. We have Christine Duffley's going to be with us, joining us via Skype. She is a wonderful mom and truly an inspiration. And her son, Christopher Duffley, as you guys have probably seen on YouTube, great videos of him singing. He's on the autism spectrum. He is also blind.
Yes.
And he is a gift to all of us.
He is. And a friend of mine recently heard him perform at Calvary Christian Church here right outside of Los Angeles and brought him to my attention. And she said, have you heard of this child? And when
You came to me and I said, we've been trying to get them on for a while.
So we got them.
In any case, Christine is going to be with us. So we're going to take a break and come back with her. Don't go away.
This is the second annual ACT Run for autism and military families. We're down here in San Diego. It's absolutely gorgeous morning. All right, let's just start moving. Let's move those feet. I know it's a little chilly. Some of you are just arriving.
Hey, you guys are looking at it. I want to remind you, you are running to raise money for an amazing cause. Our military families with a child of autism. You guys are heroes. Thank you.
So are you ready to run? Go!
Someone who's had a lot of friends who've had children with autism, and I'll tell you, there is nothing more heartfelt than watching the support that this organization provides for families and for militaries and for children.
Whoa, look at this little silver bullet on the side. He's gonna win it. Oh my gosh, tackle him. Way to throw down a killer personal best, of course, on your Act Today 10K. Look at that. That is a serious commitment to no limits racing.
You know, a lot of times you hear things about autism, you're hearing about people trying to find a cure, but what happens to the people who are living with it daily with their children? And Act Today supports them with grants and funding for a helmet, for example. They say in the lifetime of a child with autism, you can probably expect to spend about $3 million. So Act Today helps out with those things.
1 in 88 military families have autism. That's entirely too much. We have an autism epidemic. It's almost impossible for families to get the care and treatment they need, particularly the military family, who moves on average every 2 years. Oftentimes they have a parent deployed. Their children do not get the care and treatment they deserve.
I hope all of you guys enjoyed running today. We're extremely humbled to get to be the title sponsor of this great event, and it's going to grow every year. We started off as a small company with a big vision, and a few years later now we've donated over $750,000 thanks to generous support and generous marketing from our charitable partners.
All right, here now we go. On 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is international. Beat mega radio smasher. Had the time of my life, and I've never felt this way before. Yes, I swear this is true, and I owe it all to you. Oh, I had the time of my life, and I never felt this way before. And I swear this is true, and I owe it all to you. Take no pictures, I just wanna make it pop. I was going to get wild, that's my side.
The fact that you have the band going, you have friends here, you have just a great atmosphere, why not come out? And you're in Southern California. You can't get better.
I want you to know you made a difference today in the lives of families with children with autism. You guys are amazing. You're activists. You guys rock. Bye, everybody. See you next year.
this event would not be possible if we hadn't had the tremendous support of sponsors.
We encourage everybody, join us next year. The party's going to be bigger and better than ever.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We're so thrilled that we have joining us via Skype Christine Duffley, and she is the mom of Christopher Duffley, a really amazing young man who is on the autism spectrum and is also blind. So first of all, welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, Christine.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. And we want to start by having you tell our viewers a little bit about your story, about how this amazing child came to be in your life.
Thank you. Well, I'd love to share our story. Well, when my husband and I first got married, we had no idea how many kids and what life would bring. So we were very open to that. And I had 4 children at the time, 4 natural kids, and my brother and his girlfriend became pregnant, and the baby was born prematurely at 26 weeks, 1 pound, 12 ounces, and he was in critical condition. And unfortunately, as the weeks went by, we found out more about his situation, and unfortunately, the parents lost custody of him, and I didn't hear from my brother for a while. And basically, when you're missing a family member, once in a while, your heart gets moved, like, what happened to that family member? And so that's what happened to me. As a mom, you know, you wonder what happens. And so because I knew a little bit about what can happen, and my brother's background of, unfortunately, with drugs, I did contact the state of Florida, and he was in social services. He was in their foster care system. But when I inquired about, having custody, they said, "Did you know?" And I said, "Well, did I know what?" And that he was completely blind. And he also rattled off 10 other very serious health conditions, one being asthma. He had hernias. For his age, he wasn't developing normally. And they said, "Well, are you still interested?" And I said, "Well, he's my nephew. Of course I'm still interested." So with my family's blessing and my husband's permission, I flew into Florida in April, just before his first birthday in 2002. And I got to meet the little guy, and I went through a lot of trepidation about it, because the special needs child I had 4 of my own already. Would it distract from them? And I think the bottom line was that love really does overcome all these other concerns, and being a family of faith, and also knowing that I had a son that was already 1, and that the 2 of them would grow up together, and being totally blind, he would need that support. Mm-hmm. So we made the decision. We first got custody of him that next August, and then within a year, the adoption went through.
And when did you?
Right. Yeah, with this little boy.
When did you realize that he had autism, Christine?
Well, probably around 3. He really wasn't talking properly. There were sensory issues. He would poke his eyes. He would slap his head. Mm-hmm. They were cause for concern. And I think, looking back now, almost 10 years, at that time, the diagnosis was fairly new. There weren't many doctors.
Right. We're autism moms, as you know. We have children his age, so we've been down this road. But I can only imagine with his other, with the blindness and some of the other health problems, how overwhelming this must have been for you.
Yeah, at first it was. Fortunate for me, though, I did have a good support system, and that's one of the things as anyone that has a special needs child, and sometimes even our normal kids. I mean, all my kids have taken different roads in their education, and we always bend over to meet their needs. And so you have to have a strong support group, and I'm fortunate for our family that we did.
Well, good for you. I mean, it's a very inspirational story. Can you tell us when this interest in music developed? Because it was fairly early.
Yes, I'd love to share that. Well, because Christopher didn't talk and we loved music, we played music all the time. And I would go around to yard sales and I would collect phonics toys, and he loved them. He would, and this is one thing, he was very repetitive. The echolalia was severe. Yes. So he could talk, but he would repeat, "How are you? How are you?" "You want something, want something." We never really could, if he was sick, all we knew was that he would cry. So the music part, though, came with a little toy piano, VTech toys, anything that made noise. And then on that little piano, that really classical piano that you see that's brown and it's got, I don't know, what, 15 keys on it, and it sounds, it's a kiddie piano. He started banging out Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And, but, again, some of the kids can do that and really didn't think about it. And then my mom had seen an ad for music therapy, and she said, well, why don't we try this? And so on my own dime, I went into we have a local music school here, and music therapy was emerging. So we got a free evaluation, and she came out and she said, you won't believe this, but your child is perfect pitch. And I had no idea that it was really that special. I thought, well, he had an interest in music, and that was nice, and it made everything more pleasurable. But he actually started singing. He sang before he could really converse. The first song that he sang was called Open the Eyes of My Heart, which is a song by Paul Balash and sung in many, many different churches and on the radio and everywhere. And it was one of these things where he couldn't see, so we wanted to teach him that he could see with his heart.
Beautiful.
More to life than having eyesight. But the autism, when we were diagnosed finally around the age of 5, I have to tell you though, like many of you, I was devastated. I mean, a good 6 months, I think, is like, I already have the blindness, God, why the autism? And I think we all go through that. And I did, I went through that. And I think that's, and knowing he was blind was one thing, but then, because I tell people, well, I knew he was blind when he came to me. So now I really have the feeling of a sense of loss, even though we have, as parents, we need to turn that around, right?
Yes, of course.
And you're a woman of tremendous faith. And so I'm wondering if you can tell us, how did your faith help you to get from that point to now, where you guys lead a very rich life and Christopher performs and is inspiring people around the world?
That's right. That's right. Every day, we've committed each day, we committed our marriage, and I committed my life younger on, that I would just live for God. That was what gave me peace and purpose in my life, and that there was no greater joy than to do that, and that through the Holy Spirit, we are promised gifts. And so each of us have a special calling in life, and we just felt called, because one thing we did do before accepting Christopher into our home was to pray, so that every day is a gift, and that God, he proclaims his love. And Easter, just around the corner, what a great time to be talking about this, that a lot of people in our country and around the world as Christians will be celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so that's the faith that my family has embraced.
And so many things have come out of your faith. After, in first grade, Christopher was taught how to sing the Star-Spangled Banner. He started performing it at sporting events. He was invited to do the national anthem at Fenway for the Red Sox. I mean, the list just goes on. And then his YouTube performance, Open at the Eyes of My Heart, that video.
Yes.
It got so much attention, garnering 5 million views.
It's almost 6 now. It's amazing.
Yes, and now there's a debut album and another album, right?
Yeah. Here we go. Yeah, I got it right here. We embarked on the album. We had enough money. We've been putting our money away. We have a little nonprofit called No Greater Love, KNOW.
Okay.
To know greater love, because we feel that it's just not contained. When we have faith, we should be a light in the world. And even people that don't have faith come to us and just say, what an inspiration your life is. And that's what we want to do. I believe that God loves each one of us unconditionally. But whether or not you believe in God, we all need to love one another and get along. And if we can inspire each other on our own individual journeys, that's all we want to do. So the fact that Christopher has this incredible gift to not only be able to minister in churches, but that we can be a sign to the world, whether it's the national anthem or through Lean On Me and in many different venues. It's really been a tremendous life.
Now the new album, what is that called?
It's called Eyes of My Heart. We actually named it after Open the Eyes of My Heart, because the producer goes, "Well, use his name," and I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I really would like a theme to this album."
Right.
So, Eyes of My Heart, and you actually get it on iTunes and through our website. But iTunes is nice because you can just buy one song.
Yeah. Okay, great.
You don't have to buy the whole.
And so they can get it on iTunes. Is there a place where they can also buy the actual CD?
Yes, they can through our website, ChristopherDuffley.com.
Okay. Really
And we
nice.
have a video.
Yes, but it's at the absolute end of the interview. So before we go, I have one quick question for you. In all of this journey, because you mentioned that you had 4 other children before Christopher came into your life, and so many people write in and talk about what it's like for the siblings. What has it been like for Christopher's siblings?
I think it's been a real eye-opener for them how much richer their lives are, how much we appreciate what we have, and how we learn how to be less selfish. So we're in an environment right now where it's a selfie world, and this way the kids have learned to be not so selfish, and I think they wouldn't take anything back. They would not return him. They just love their brother like he was born to me naturally. And so I think just being selfless and being richer, having a richer life, because we can't have everything and we don't own everything. We have old cars and I don't even talk about insurance. Christopher's covered, but the rest of us are on, we're self-employed. So we're all struggling, but we're all making it too, because we do have a great life, and to embrace what life does bring us, and to take in those sweet moments, and to rely on each other. And that's what you do. Why you do what you do is because we need support. We cannot do it alone.
Well, your whole family is so inspirational. We thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. And as we leave with you, we're going to show our viewers a video that you sent us of Christopher singing. So inspirational.
Thank you so much, Christine.
You're so welcome. Thank you again. Yeah.
You have a lovely day.
Here we go to the video.
Take a look.
But
young man. Yeah.
And I just want to say, you know, we talked about Holy Week and all of that. It's a Holy Week for many. I mean, Passover and, you know, I think it's just the main message here is love.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's love. It's inner spiritual. It's love for our special community, our special children, adults, and all of us coming together and showing love.
And I so appreciate, if you go to their website, and Christine's got a video there where she talks a little bit, amazing woman, because, you know, she's facing a bunch of different challenges as a person, and she doesn't sugarcoat it, but she's still finding a way to be happy and joyous, and I think that's something we can all take note of and be inspired by. So we thank them, and really remarkable young man. We only got a couple of minutes here at the end of the show. You've got a very important event coming up on Sunday.
I really would just like to urge everyone that's watching.
Saturday. I said Sunday.
Saturday. The event itself is the One Hope Wine Act Today for Military Families Run, Walk, and Festival. Talk about a mouthful. But it's down in San Diego at Tecolote Shores. But you can go on our website. You can go on the Act Today for Military Families website right there, Conterra.org. You can make a donation, any amount. You can help our team, Wyatt's Warriors. I'm running with a group of people to support other children in the name of my son Wyatt. We even had 2 years ago, we had Colonel Jerome Driscoll in Afghanistan running with his platoon of Marines virtually while we ran the event here. I know you're planning on coming down.
Yes, Jem and I are going to be there.
It's a great day. If you're in the San Diego area, it's a great event to come. Easter egg hunt, kids fun zone, card therapists will be there if you have a child with autism, sensory zone for those kids. There's a wine and beer garden with mommy juice for the moms, wine, and beer for the for the runners.
Okay, I'm sorry. Some of the mommy juice for the mom is just the eye candy that's there. You have a bunch of Marines
some really cute,
that are
and Navy. Let's not forget the Navy and the Army girl and Coast Guard.
I believe there's a bunch of military people there that are just it's eye candy. I hate to make it about that, but you know there are worse things in life.
And some of them run in formation. It's just so great.
And they all start doing that, you know, huzzah and
the hoo-ha,
the hoo-ha and all that. It's a lot of testosterone. I'm telling you, it's very inspirational. And you'll hear some stories while you're there. I'm coming not to work. I'm coming to be at the event with my child, because last year we were there and we worked, and it was such a fun event, and I really wanted to come, but we will be there.
Yeah, and the Easter Bunny will be there too.
There you go. So if you can get there, get there. If you can't get there, participate by being a virtual runner. Spread the word on Facebook.
That helps us.
Absolutely. So also I want to take a brief second to talk about the Future Horizons has regular workshops around the country in different places. They're coming to Ventura, not this week, but the week after.
California.
Ventura, California on April 25th. And Nancy and I are working it out so that we can actually be there for that event. And their keynote speaker is Temple Grandin. A really remarkable opportunity to be in person and see Temple Grandin, and hopefully the two of us as well. We're rearranging things so that Nancy and I can be there, but an amazing day starting at 7 o'clock in the morning going till 4:30 in the afternoon with additional speakers. Want to encourage you to go check it out on Future Horizons website, which I always have trouble finding on this form. It's fhautism.com, fhautism.com, but really amazing. Dr. Raoun Melmed is going to be talking about, his topic is a pediatrician's perspective, and Jennifer McIlway-Myers, yes, is going to be there talking about life skills for those on the spectrum. And of course, Dr. Temple Grandin will be talking about my sensory-based world. So make sure that if you're in the area that's something that you can attend, but also go and look at Future Horizons website to see if there's one that's coming closer to you at another time, because they have them on frequent basis. Also want to, as we leave, we've got some exciting things coming up tomorrow. Dr. Adele Nadowski is going to be with us tomorrow, and next week we've got a big exciting show where we will be doing the CAN campaign next Wednesday.
And
so
do we have the swim instructor for sensory?
It's not swim, it's movement. We're having somebody talking about movement next
that's
week.
ballet?
Ballet.
And then the week after that it's swim. we got lots of things.
No, the
coming
week
up.
after that is we're having the doctor on.
Okay, well we got so much.
We're out of
going on.
time, but give your kiddos a hug from me,
and give yourselves a hug from me. And no matter what holiday you're celebrating, blessings to all of you.
Bye bye for now.
Bye.